good morning. You're watching Morning at NTV. Yes, and the hashtag is Morning at NTV in case you want to, of course, give us your thoughts and opinions on some of the conversations we'll be having since morning. Or you have a question, you're thinking something you guys have missed. This show is for us. Why don't you discuss this? The hashtag again is Morning at NTV. I'm Flavia, and I've just been having a very beautiful conversation, and I'm hoping you can love it as much as I have had it. October, we've been screaming about it being Cancer Awareness Month. But turns out there's something even more interesting. So if you can just bask in the glory of October, it's actually a UN month. And when you think United Nations, do you actually know what they do? Do you actually know their detail and role in this country, Uganda? Or just say, oh yeah, UN, that they have some work, they have some research, they have some reviews, whatever. I need you to actually understand that the UN is for you and me. Joining me is the UN Resident Coordinator, Rosa Malango. Good morning.
Good morning.
I had a very beautiful conversation with you. I'm hoping what I know now, they will know at the end of this couple of minutes. Yeah. So the UN, which is the United Nations, but in Uganda, most people might not even know what the UN actually does in Uganda, or even beyond Uganda. They might just hear it as some ambiguous word or organization. How would you break it down for us?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me here today. I'm here because we want to use the month of October as an opportunity for engagement and interaction.
Yes.
It is to be expected, perhaps, that after 73 years of existence, there might be some different understandings about the UN and what it is. It was created after two really bad world wars. The intent and purpose in our charter is about making sure that there's international peace, making sure that there's equity between member states, pursuing sustainable development, humanitarian affairs, and human rights. The beauty of it is that if you look at the charter, 73 years later, it's still valid.
Okay.
So if you look at it, in addition today, we have one new very important framework, which is the Sustainable Development Goals.
Yes.
And again, it's the first time in UN history that all the countries defined together a shared agenda. So if you look from that perspective, then our job in Uganda and in other countries is to help each country make the SDGs a reality, depending on the reality that you have.
Exactly, because the SDGs are not, and I think you were breaking it down for me, it's what your country, and then your region, and then the world.
Correct.
Yeah, so you have to break it down to how they are in your country, what they would mean, and what you can do beyond this. You have some material here, and I'm actually amazed all this exists, from how our constitution is aligned with the SDGs, how we deliver work, things like first tracking on ending HIV and AIDS in Uganda, things like wellness. There's so much material. But does this also include some of the activities that the UN in Uganda does just to bring this awareness out?
Well, absolutely. I think it's very important for people to understand that we operate based on a strategy and a vision. Yeah. We support the national vision. In Uganda, it's 2040. In other countries, it's something else. And then you look at what does the national vision say and what does the global vision say, 2030, and what is our added value. I think it's very important also that people understand we are knowledge brokers. So we are the biggest partnership platform in the world. So if you have an issue or a challenge, we can check within our archives or among the member states or the different agencies and help come up with a solution that works for Uganda.
Okay.
So that is why you will find that, for example, we helped come up with the wetland atlas. What was the challenge? People didn't know where the wetlands were. There was wetland degradation. It was affecting the environment and the climate. So you had a clash between industrialization and environment preservation. Let's bring out the knowledge in a way that decision makers know what to do. On HIV, as I mentioned, Uganda was doing very well before, and then the numbers went wrong. So then we said, what do we need to do? We need a plan of action, very simple. Roles and responsibilities are clear, and we came up with a presidential initiative, fast tracking it. When you look about leaving no one behind, we realized that Uganda has a very rich culture, several kingdoms and chiefdoms. We asked them to have a consultation on common values and how do those common values translate into the realities of today.
Yes.
So how do you use those common values to protect the environment, create jobs, look at health, conflict resolution. And again, that's us enabling the knowledge to be transferred.
Speaking of knowledge, I wonder where you have found our strength as Uganda, especially in applying some of the SDGs and our successes. Where have you found our strength?
I believe that if I have to look at strengths, the first strength that comes to my mind is the strength of policy. You have some of the most remarkable policies that we have ever seen. The challenge then becomes implementing
yes,
them.
I was about to say implementation.
And there is where, again, we're trying to work to see, is it about translating them, bringing them into local languages? So, for example, the SDGs are in local languages. Some of the important policies, we go out to the field to see how do you talk about it on radio shows. So really making sure that people understand those policies and how to roll them out. And that's why we work with parliamentarians, civil society, security forces, the government. We're trying to help the whole of society to implement its policies. Yeah. The second example, which has been acknowledged worldwide, is the way Uganda deals with refugees. The sheer dignity that you bring to that. You still are. I mean, we were in New York last week for the General Assembly, and again, Secretary General thanking Uganda for the way you deal with refugees and being a role model to the world. You empower refugees, they become part of your economy. The day they go home, they're better citizens. HIV, I think it's another area where you're doing very, very well, and it's inspirational to see what is done. There is another important topic which it has mobilized a lot of people, but we're not there yet. Okay. Is the issue of the adolescent girl. There is so much that I have seen being done from Karamoja to West Nile to the Southwest on trying to get the communities to let girls stay in school. Yes. Make sure that they can become responsible mothers and women growing up, and make sure that they have the right to have a healthy life until they can be women, and not force them into early marriages or female genital mutilation. So that whole thing of protecting the adolescent girl so she can become a healthy, strong woman is something where Uganda has a lot of innovative initiatives, but we still have a lot of work to do. I hear you. So the work of the UN, and especially your role, Rosa, I've heard you say we work with parliamentarians, we work with so-and-so, work with so-and-so. And I wonder the value then in that chain of working together. And because I always say, isn't it good to start from the community levels, get down to the people, talk to the people, which I think I heard you say, that you work with the communities. Yes, yes. Is there saying that there's hierarchy? This one is more important than the other in the chain? No, I really believe that from the UN perspective, we say every life matters and every contribution is fundamental. I do my best to go out to visit districts and regions every 6 to 8 weeks. We have at present 2,600 staff in the country, 60% of whom are Ugandans. We have 4 bases around the country. We call them UN area coordination teams, where we work with the people directly and with local government directly. So what we do when we go down on a visit is to go and see firsthand what's going on. What's happening, what are your concerns? And also I discover groups. I remember going to Karamoja, I discovered a youth group that works on peace. I discovered a group of women living with HIV, starting their own business. In Arua, I also met an incredible network of women starting their own small business. In Kiriandongo, I met a community doing green briquettes. I visited the national parks to see how to push tourism and to see how the communities cohabitate with the national parks going on. So you see the country evolving. But I also see that sometimes you have solutions to problems in one part of the country, and the other part of the country doesn't know. And so the good part of that about going out is that you actually tell them, actually, this good practice you're doing here, can you share it with this other region? Yes, let it seep over to the other regions. And that way, learning doesn't have to be outside Uganda. I mean, you can learn within the country wherever the good practices are. Okay, fantastic. So, and then I wonder where the UN then comes in. Say we have a group that is focused on one of the goals, for example, that is working towards that or is putting their footprint in that. Where's the UN? Are you just a linkage? Are you a point of information? Well, that's the beauty of diversity. We have 18 agency funds and programs working, and it really depends on what the needs are on the ground. Okay. So, for example, if I look at West Nile right now, which is one of our most complex operations, we have humanitarian and development work going on. Okay. You have refugees going on. You have environmental issues going on. So then it depends. So, for example, you have UNDP working with the local government to improve their capacity to manage and coordinate. You have UNCDF working on micro grants for youth and women to start their businesses. You have UNHCR, UNICEF World Food Program, working on the humanitarian parts of the refugees, you know, who are there.
Okay.
So we are all working depending on what our strengths are. And you have like UN Women also working with the women to try to figure out what do they need to be able to step up and be empowered.
Okay, well, fantastic. So there are different agencies which then tap into where's the need.
Correct. And also what's the level? Because at the community level, really, it's hands-on. People need to understand.
Okay.
And then at Kampala level here, we're looking at policy. We're looking at policy. We're looking at strategic engagement. We're looking at diplomacy and advocacy. That's
so
the
our
communication
leaders then,
here.
CSOs.
Exactly.
Okay, fantastic. So I said at the beginning that October is UN month. So obviously it's been happening. It's 24th of this month.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and you're in the perfect month because our independence is here. So I guess we need to sort of go back and review where we are with our, you know, SDGs and all of that. So it's a big conversation. And I wonder what you have planned. Has it been different? You can maybe recap for us where we have been before to this year.
Yes, it has been different. I think it's very interesting to know that Uganda is one of those countries where we've had a long-standing relationship. Happy birthday, Uganda, you're 56. Our relationship with Uganda is 55 years old.
Whoa.
So it's that long.
It's 1 year short.
Yes. We have evolved. We used to have a very ceremonial celebration of UN Day, the 24th at the hotel, and you had your panel and you cut your cake. And I really thought that we needed to change that and turn it into a moment of accountability, of interaction, and of action. So last year, we started with a change. We did community service, and it was beautiful. We cleaned markets. We visited schools. We planted gardens, and really got a chance for people to realize that this is part of what the UN is and what we do, and this is what the SDGs mean. This year, we're taking it a step further. So there's a couple of major UN days already in October, which is why we said we're going to highlight them. So like we already had World Habitat Day, but we have the International Day for the Rural Women. We have Eradication of Poverty. We have Food Day for Zero Hunger. We have Teachers Day. So those days are all days during which we're inviting people to come out. Okay. So for example, for the Girl Child, 11 October will be in Jinja. There'll be an activity. Okay. Rural Women, 15 October in Karamoja. Food, 16 October, Karamoja. An SDG run in Kampala on the 28th. Zero Hunger, a walk, 12 October, Kampala. Teachers, Fort Portal, 5 October. Poverty Eradication, 17. And Pink Fashion for Disabilities, 27 October. The main day is the 24th. Okay. And here's where we're really excited. We're inviting everybody to join us at Kololo Airstrip from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. We're going to focus this year on health and well-being. So here you go, SDG 3, showing that there.
Health and well-being.
Health. If you're not healthy, you can't talk about development, humanitarian affairs, peace building, or anything else.
And also, I think people always focus on, you know, poverty eradication, peace and justice, and nobody ever pinpoints on that one.
Physical, emotional, spiritual health. Let's do the well-being. Yeah. So there's going to be exercises, there's going to be sports, there's going to be exhibitions. So you'll be able to have a chance to engage with the stakeholders who actually work on these sectors and what's going on. And there's going to be a quiz. We've been having a competition sponsored by the NTV with the universities having a quiz on what do they understand as SDGs. So we'll be recognizing the winners and also the winners of those who have worked with us at different levels across the country.
All right. I wonder, just as you, Rosa, because I feel like, especially from my conversations with you, that some of these decisions that you take on how we're going to celebrate UN Month, how we're going to put out information, you really believe in them. You're passionate about them. So I'm wondering why health and wellness, it is a conversation all of a sudden for the last like 2-3 years. Everyone is sprouting about health and wellness. What does that mean for you?
Well, I mean, definitely this is part of taking the pulse and figuring out what is relevant at every given time. As I mentioned last year, it was really about partnerships. So we figured, how do we show the partnerships and hence the service going out to the market and to the schools and what's not. Last year, the World Health Organization, which is part of the UN country team, highlighted to us the dangerous levels of non-communicable diseases. It's a worldwide problem that even affects us in Uganda. So we all share the commitment that we need to do what we can to deal with this. So we've been looking internally. work-life balance, encouraging our own staff to take time off to work out, encouraging walking and eating and healthy. So we thought UN Day has to represent that spirit
as well.
So we were really excited to see the National Fitness Day launch in Uganda.
By the president, yeah.
There you go. So that's what's relevant now.
Today, yeah.
If we are healthy, then we can look at all the other things.
Okay, so for let's first focus on the 24th of October. So that's happening as the UN, you're saying the theme is around wellness and health, which is one of the SDGs. And it's 8 a.m. you said? Yes. To 5 p.m.
Yes.
A whole day?
A whole day.
Full day. A full day. So what are we expecting? Paint a picture for us. Am I going to work out? So should I come comfy? Am I going to buy a few wellness products? Paint a picture for us.
Well, definitely, we're hoping that you're going to come full of energy and excitement, and that you're going to have a good time and you're going to learn. So yes, I encourage people to come comfortable clothes.
Yeah.
There's going to be Zumba, there's going to be football, volleyball. So those sports will be there. But as I mentioned before, there's also going to be the exhibition tent, so you can come in and sit and take notes. There might also be some services available, so you can take away something, not just some of our books, but we're hoping there'll be some services that you can also purchase from some of our partners on the ground. So you will learn, you will meet people, and you will be healthy.
Which is very, very important. So that's the 24th of October. We'll come back to it and all that. But I'm wondering, when people come to such days, or actually you said you started last year, bring it closer. Correct. To the people. I'm sure that worked because they're doing the same thing sort of this year. But sometimes when you bring things closer to people, especially the work of the UN, you get surprised by how people's perception of your work. What were the biggest surprises from last year's work?
Well, I guess one of the things that I should say that we do every year as well is that we have this very informal video that we do every year, where we send a team out and they ask different people, what does the UN mean? What do you know about the UN? And
don't you get surprised by
yes. When we did it the first time, we did it in 2016, someone said that Queen Elizabeth was the head of the UN. So yeah, we were way out.
Whoa.
But now it's come closer. They know who the Secretary General is. They know the agencies. They can name 4 or 5 agencies on what's going on. I think that what has surprised me the most is the fact that people don't realize that we are about people's lives. We're about people, planet, and prosperity. That's what the UN is about. And so if you're about people, planet, and prosperity, then food security is about us, and climate change is about us, and industrialization is about us. Human rights is about us. Governance is about us, because that's what it takes for people to live on the only planet that we have and prosper. So some of the comments make us realize we need to go even further.
Yes.
One thing that I do look forward to is doing more in local languages. And this is why we work very closely with CSOs, because if they understand, they become champions as well.
Okay, so it hasn't, some of this work hasn't been translated, has it?
No, just the SDG booklets to start with, some of the basic ones, but we want to try to make it standard that every product that comes out gets translated. Okay. So people can relate. The SDGs is not a science. It's about the quality of services to the people.
Yes. The SDGs are very, and it's true, they're about the quality of service. And quality of service is not just to you and I, Rosa. It's also to the student. It's to the person in Kamwenge. It's the person in Bukoto. It's everybody. And I'm wondering whether, I understand that I think now some parts of the country, they're introducing SDGs in one way or another to even the younger communities. But what do you think should be sort of the teaching of SDGs? Should we start at what level? How should we implement and put it in different ways so that these things don't just affect the adults, it affects the young people, which is our biggest percentage of our population. How should it be embedded in the teachings?
Well, I think that it has to be embedded by linking it to values and to principles. We teach our kids right from wrong from when they're very young.
Yes.
So we teach them to protect the environment, and we should teach them not to throw plastics out, and you teach them. So it starts from there. And at each stage of life, you get taught a different way. So and for a country like Uganda as one of the youngest in the world, then that means the space for innovation is huge. Have a discussion about rights and responsibilities and opportunities in this SDG era. I hear people talk a lot about employment. What kind of employment? Are we talking about digital employment? Are we talking about employment in the urban areas? What about the rural areas?
Yes.
How do you make sure that if I'm a young person in Moroto, I can still have a dignified job and take care of my family, and I don't have to come to Kampala? You know, how do you make sure that the towns around Masaka and around Mbale, they have an economy that allows them to live without having to come to get a job here? And so you give them a dignified quality of life no matter where they are.
Yes.
How do you make sure that the communities in Moroto who live next to development minerals can actually benefit from a safe way of mining that doesn't cause a health hazard or a security hazard? You know, so those are discussions. That's a way of talking about the SDGs. Protecting people to be able to have dignified quality of life. And I think it's very important to know that, as we're saying, it's about dialogue and it's about empowerment.
Yes.
This is Uganda. Uganda has a vision, and all Ugandans have a role in achieving that vision. So how can you use the SDGs to help you attain the Uganda you want?
We like dialogues. I think, as you said in the beginning, implementation is where our problem is.
But maybe that's where the youth can come in. I mean, the youth can bring different approaches to implementation because they have a different view and there's different technologies. So the policies have been done. How does it trickle down? And whether you're youth in a slum or the youth in a rural area or youth in an emerging town or in a border zone, how do you bring it to life?
Exactly. Yeah, so you one of the most interesting pieces of information you have here from what you shared, according to me, was this approach, Ubuntu Bulamu, in Uganda. Rosa says they talked to a couple of cultural leaders, and what did you tell them? To figure out what they have in common.
Oh, yes.
And in my mind, when she was telling me, I thought the cultural leaders will have 2 or 3 things in common. You know, we have our culture, we uphold it, we have values, the here and there, but she says 70?
70. I mean, it was really amazing. And I think that this is another part about what are shared values. You hear people talk about values. So
yes.
when I started thinking about, as a UN, how can we help domesticate the Sustainable Development Goals? And I was told the importance of cultural leaders. So we approached the kingdoms and chiefdoms and said, can you please come up with a few common values? And to be very honest, I was aiming for like 5. And
so this, you had the Kabaka, everybody.
They all had 2 or 3 representatives of their chiefdoms and kingdoms, and they were together for 4 or 5 days.
Okay.
And then they told us that actually they had identified several and they needed some extra time, so they were given extra time. And at the end, it was 70 shared values that they had identified. So then I asked them to please link it to the SDGs.
Yes.
And it was amazing. They were able to link them all. So guess what? The SDGs actually existed before the 20th century. So it was really interesting to see that protecting the environment
was still important
poverty,
to them.
All of these things have been important forever in the chiefdoms and in the kingdoms. But they have a different approaches to it. They communicated it differently in different languages. And hence, I recognize the cultural leaders as champions of the SDGs. So we're talking about local values of global relevance.
Yes.
And it's beautiful. And I'm really proud to note that thanks to the Ubuntu Bulamu approach, this theory of change has been recognized at the global level as a best practice by the South-South Cooperation Office, and even the African Union is looking at it now to see how other African countries can actually look at what are the local values and how does that guide your journey to development.
Wow, thank you for the good work. That's so wonderful. Get familiar about the SDGs, just in case you're not informed about those Sustainable Development Goals. And many of them will actually resonate with you or your community. And as she said, it starts from country, then to the region you want to be in, and then the world you want to exist in. We have to take care of all of this, of course, starting at home, in your country, then your region, and then your world. So as we wind up, Rosa, the 24th of October is the UN Day.
Yes.
But the month of October, you'll be having different activities that you're partnering with just to put the message out and across. On the 24th, from the whole day, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. at what, Kololo Airstrip?
Kololo Airstrip.
Yes. Everybody's welcome?
Everybody's welcome.
Okay, we're paying anything?
You're not paying a dime.
Even better. A free workout. Yes. And you get some information. So I guess get comfy, wear some workout clothes, and come with a notebook.
Yes.
You know, information while also getting well. Before we wind up, anything you'd want people to know about the UN? As you said, and I think that's the hashtag, UN
Is us.
UN is us.
Yes, I guess I have to say I'm really touched by that. Last year, our hashtag was UN for You to communicate the service.
Yeah.
And by social media, I got some recommendations from the youth about, they discovered last year that actually the UN is all of us. We are all the UN.
Okay.
And they asked us for the hashtag to be UN is us. So I accepted and agreed. So 2018, the hashtag is UN is us. And really to remind people, we are all the UN. And if we want to solve problems, whether it's about land or poverty or the environment, we have to work at it. It's never easy, but we have only one planet, and we're all part of only one human race.
So we might as well protect it. Thank you so much, Rosa Malango, the UN Resident Coordinator. Yes, 24th of October, but the UN is, Rosa is a woman of action. So they're online everywhere. So you can find them and get all this information on how you can participate or understand better how the UN is for us. That's it for Morning at NTV. Have a good day.